Earlier today was the UFC 308 weigh-ins, and people are already drumming up conspiracy theories that Khamzat Chimaev missed weight and the Abu Dhabi Commission / the UFC rigged it for Khamzat Chimaev, and they were all in on it, and Khamzat really missed weight, and he broke the rules, and there's a theory out there that the UFC extended the weigh-in hours for Khamzat Chimaev to make weight. And let me just start off by saying this. All, and I mean all of these claims are categorically false. And I really didn't think I was going to make a video about this, but then nonstop, I put out a couple tweets about it, nonstop people are tweeting to me saying, Joey, no, Khamzat missed weight. Khamzat, the weigh-ins got extended by an hour. It's because of they're in Abu Dhabi, this and that. We're going to debunk everything in this video. So let's just jump right into it, because this is all surrounding this. Khamzat Chimaev's weigh-in at UFC 308 earlier this morning. This was Khamzat's weigh-in, okay? He was the last person to weigh in, and this was his weigh-in. Let's watch it. Let's watch it. So he comes up to the scale, smiling, and then I want you to pay attention here, because this is where all the focus is right here, okay? Is on how fast this guy moves this little, counterbalance. Even Ariel Helwani's chiming in on it, which we'll get to Ariel Helwani in a second. But I want you to really hyper fixate on that, okay? Watch it. So he moved. What people are saying is, oh, he moved it so fast. Look how fast he moved it. Let's rewind it one more time, because it starts to balance out, and then he says, okay, moves it and announces the weight. But let's watch it again. 186. And he makes 186. He makes weight. Now, let's start off with the first narrative, and that is the scale. Why didn't they let the scale settle? Which, for the people who are saying, why don't they use digital scales? I understand that. I'm with you 100%. But the whole scale settling narrative is absolutely bullshit. And it just so happens Ariel Helwani, Chimaev was the last to weigh in with minutes left. Thoughts on the body language. And he puts down here, also, why don't they ever let the scale settle? Why move it so quickly every time? It's awfully funny. It only matters, even though it's every time, as he admits right there, it only matters when it's Khamzat Chimaev. Nobody else is insinuating anybody else missed weight, just Khamzat Chimaev, because the guy moved it too quickly. So I went back and got some timestamps for you guys. Let's check out Ilia Topuria weighing in. Does anyone think they rigged it for Ilia Topuria here? Let's see Ilia Topuria get weighed in. Let's see, again, hyper fixate on this section right here. How fast does he move it? Let's watch. Still moving a little bit, slides it away. Let's jump ahead, okay? Let's take a look at Chris Barnett. I mean, we can all expect Chris Barnett to miss weight, surely, right? Let's take a look at his weigh-in. They must have rigged it for Chris Barnett too. Let's take a look. Still moving its way up, balancing out. The guy moves it away. Oh no, they rigged it for Chris Barnett. Let's take a look at one more example. Khamzat Chimaev's opponent, Robert Whittaker. This is like a highlight section of all the weigh-ins. But let's take a look at Robert Whittaker's weigh-in. Couldn't possibly be way quicker than Khamzat Chimaev's, right? Couldn't possibly. They couldn't have weighed in Robert Whittaker way quicker than Khamzat Chimaev, right? Still moving, slid it away. Well, how come, wait a second, how come none of these guys supposedly missed weight? Why isn't there any false narratives surrounding any of these other guys? Well, you know what? That's a topic we're going to touch at the end of this video, okay? A very controversial topic that a lot of people don't like when I say. But, it seems to be a common theme with the false narratives applying to a certain subset of fighters. It does seem to be that. But let's watch Robert Whittaker's one more time, and then we're going to watch Khamzat Chimaev's one more time just to compare them both. Because they're very, very similar. I would say Robert Whittaker's is a little bit faster. But no one's claiming that he missed weight. So there you go. He made weight. Now let's watch it. Let's watch Khamzat Chimaev's now. You tell me who this guy waited longer for. Because I can clearly see it was Khamzat Chimaev, that he waited for the scale to settle a little bit more. And let's actually dive deeper into that narrative and how it lacks all critical thinking ability. If they were going to rig it for a fighter, right, we can't tell what weight it even says on here. When they're moving, the smaller adjustment, we can't even tell what weight it is on. So theoretically, if they were going to quote unquote rig it so somebody could miss weight, they could put it on the wrong weight and then just announce the correct weight. Right? Because we would never be able to tell. It's not like we can tell exactly what that scale's on. Nobody can tell other than the guy standing 2 feet away from it. So why would they essentially just move it too quick instead of just maybe lying about the weight? They could easily just put it, 187. Oh, good to go, 186. 186. That's what they could have done. So the entire narrative about the scale settling, it needs to settle. This is just a dumb narrative, and it just annoyed me that Ariel Helwani's out there pushing that narrative around. Didn't say it about anyone else. Didn't say it about anyone else. Then we have the next narrative, which the next narrative is they extended the weigh-in window for Khamzat Chimaev. I don't know how anyone even believes this because it's always been 2 hours to weigh in. Apparently it wasn't at UFC 307. The UFC graphics says otherwise. We'll check that out in a second. But a lot of people were saying that this was switched up right before Khamzat was going to miss weight. Well, that's false because this is about 30 minutes into the weigh-in show. This is actually 40 minutes into the weigh-in show, which starts roughly 10 minutes before the initial weigh-in time starts. And here they announce, they'll have, 2 hours to weigh in. We'll be here for 2 hours. And you can even see in the bottom right-hand corner here, this will go away in a second, time left to weigh in. You can see that in the bottom right-hand corner, and here they even talk about it on the show.
I know, there's 2 more, too.
Since this is a weigh-in show, I want to get back to the weigh-ins for a minute. We've had a lot of guys weigh in. We're still waiting on several. The biggest name is one half of the co-main event, Khamzat Chimaev. All the fighters have been encouraged to weigh in prior to 10. Currently, it's 9:30 in the morning, local time here in Abu Dhabi. They do have until 11. However, if they don't plan on weighing in before 10, they have to notify the commission. So long story short, we have 90 minutes to go potentially.
Yeah.
But the guys were encouraged to weigh in by 10. The reason I'm telling you that is because in Salt Lake City, all the guys did have to weigh in by 10. That is not the case here. And the last 2 Vegas events as well.
So I didn't even hear that for Salt Lake City. And what's crazy is even on the Salt Lake City stream, they say they have 2 hours. So I guess maybe somebody messed up there. But if you go back to previous events, like he says, it's still a 2-hour window. So to act as if they added an extra hour specifically for Khamzat Chimaev is completely ludicrous for a multitude of reasons. And one narrative, and we're gonna continue on this, multiple hours for Khamzat Chimaev to weigh in. We're gonna continue on that narrative in a second. And we're gonna look at some evidence. But one thing that I continue to see that drives me nuts is people say they're in Abu Dhabi. Of course they're gonna rig it for the Muslim fighters. You guys do realize there's not an Abu Dhabi commission, right? The UFC self-regulates in Abu Dhabi. So they bring essentially other commission members from other athletic commissions, which is why you see the typical, Herb Dean or, Big Dan or whatever, Jason Herzog, whatever referees, the same judges. It's the same commission, essentially. The UFC just kind of handpicks certain guys to go over there. So they would have no bias, no inherent bias towards Muslim fighters. People act like everyone on the commission over in Abu Dhabi has a turban on. Everyone's riding a camel. Everyone's Muslim. They gotta break out every stereotype that, they're rigging it for the Muslim fighters. Well, wait a second. Most of the people who are on the commission over there, which is self-regulated by the UFC is the commission over there, is people from the United States. Your usual suspects. That narrative makes no sense. But we keep seeing people say, the weigh-ins got extended. Well, what about UFC 303? Okay? Here it is, UFC 303 weigh-in. Yuri Prochazka weighed in about an hour and 40 minutes into the weigh-in time. So roughly just a little bit less than when Khamzat Chimaev weighed in. Khamzat Chimaev weighed in 12 minutes before the 2-hour window was up. And here is Yuri Prochazka weighing in 24 minutes before the weigh-in is up. You can even see the little counter down at the window, down at the bottom. 24 minutes right there. 24 minutes left. No one said Yuri was missing weight. Nobody said Yuri was missing weight for UFC 303. Nobody said Pereira was missing weight for UFC 303. Nobody said that. And also, if you go and look at this weigh-in, okay, the weigh-in show. Let's jump ahead to 1 hour and 28 minutes, okay? And again, let me give you full context here. They start this show 10 minutes before the weigh-in time starts. So essentially, 1 hour and 28 minutes would be 1 hour and 18 minutes into the weigh-in time, roughly, okay? Give or take a minute or two. Oh, well, you know what? You know who's weighing in after the hour mark? Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva weighed in after the hour mark. It must be rigged for Bruno Silva. Oh, you know who also weighed in, after that? Sharabullet Magomedov. Here's Sharabullet Magomedov weighing in right here. Hour and 52 minutes into the stream, which would mean 1 hour and 42 minutes into the weigh-in window. You know who also weighed in? Oh, we also have Diego Lopez weighing in after the, he's a backup for the main event. We also have him weighing in. Must have been rigged for Diego Lopez as well. The people regurgitating these narratives have no critical thinking ability, okay? All these guys, multiple people weighed in after the 1 hour period, but somehow Khamzat Chimaev is now being given favoritism by a non-existent Abu Dhabi commission, which is really made up of mostly Americans from that the UFC handpicks. And okay, maybe you want to say the UFC is going to rig it. Again, that makes no sense. So they're rigging it for Bruno Silva, rigging it for Diego Lopez, rigging it for Khamzat Chimaev. They're rigging it for all these guys. Rigging it for Sharabullet Magomedov. Makes zero sense. You go to the UFC 307 weigh-in, which a lot of people, well, what's his name? I don't even know the guy's name from the morning weigh-in show, said they only had an hour to weigh in. Now, granted, everyone weighed in within the hour, but apparently the guy making the graphics didn't know, because you can see right down here, the UFC logo is over top of it. 1 hour and 57 minutes left to go. This is at the very beginning of the stream. This is 12 minutes into the stream. Again, they start 10 minutes early. This is for UFC 307. So Utah has their own commission. So I can only assume, you can see on the banner back here, Utah Sports Commission. I'm assuming in Utah exclusively, they only give you a 1 hour window. I don't know that for 100% certainty, but that's what I'm assuming. And I'm assuming the guy who made the graphic didn't know this is some kind of slip up, because I'm assuming what, the guy said at the beginning. Oh, there, I clicked on him right away. What this guy said in the beginning was accurate. That, outside of Utah, everyone basically in the Las Vegas cards, you could weigh in 2 hours. But, here or in Utah, you could weigh in 1 hour. Everywhere else, you could weigh in 2 hours. It's so bizarre that these narratives are built up. Oh, they moved the counterbalance too fast. Well, that's what they did for every single person. So if your gripe is with that, why is it only Khamzat Chimaev getting any criticism? Why is that only? It seems to be that these narratives, it seems that there's a certain trend with these narratives, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe this is it. Anyone else find it incredibly bizarre? Almost always the incredible, dumb, and false narratives are usually surrounding Muslim fighters. Islam took an IV. False. To this day, there has never been any evidence to substantiate the claim that Dan Hooker made. His biggest, smoking gun, as he called it, was where there's smoke, there's fire. Basically, I made it up and just believe it. Prove me wrong, bet you can't. Ankalaev demands Abu Dhabi. Categorically false. Easily disproven. I mean, I've already broken that down. And now Khamzat needed extra time to weigh in, and he didn't make weight. That's the new narrative. So all these were false, and they were widely accepted as fact. And that's why I'm like, you know what? I have to do this video. So many people are talking about it, and it's just crazy that people are dumb enough to believe this stuff. If you believe that the UFC is going to risk their entire business model to make one fighter make weight, but it's also because it's in Abu Dhabi and it's a Muslim fighter, then you're smoking crack. You're smoking crack. I don't trust the UFC at all. But to think that they're going to potentially undermine their entire business just so a guy makes weight at 185 makes absolutely no sense, which was 186 before someone corrects me. They have a 1 pound allowance. And then the fact that people want to say, the scale didn't settle. That really drove me nuts. The scale didn't settle. Well, it didn't settle for anyone else as well. Again, nobody said that about Robert Whittaker. Nobody said that about Max Holloway. Nobody said that about Ilia Topuria, which I already showed you those examples. It only seems to be certain Muslim fighters. Somehow there's egregiously false narrative surrounding them recently. And it drives me nuts. And I know nobody else will say that. And I know people say, Joey, you're just looking for attention. You're just a contrarian. No, I'm just pointing out what I see. Because I don't care if people unsubscribe because they hear that. I'm just going to say what's true. You know, people, you know, I'm trying to think of another narrative recently. Those are the three most recent narratives that I can think of that are just categorically false. You know, Merab's not Muslim, but he's from the Caucasus region, which kind of is lumped into that Muslim group. You know, you could say there's a certain group that hates on people because of their religion. There's also that same group that hates on people depending on where they're from. They say, oh, Merab turned down a title shot against Aljamain Sterling. Also categorically false. You know, I know there's this stuff with Merab and Umar right now, but it just seems these narratives get overblown for specific groups of fighters. And I'm so tired of having to make dumb videos like this. You just look at it, you can tell, okay, there's always 2 hours for the weigh-ins. That's always been the standard. But instead, oh, you know what, Khamzat's Muslim and they're in Abu Dhabi, so there must be some mastermind with a turban behind the scenes who's also Muslim, who's rigging it for him. No, literally, Occam's razor. The most likely, you know, what's most likely is probably what's most likely true, okay? The most obvious scenario is what's most likely true. And what happened here is Khamzat Chimaev weighed in within the allotted window. He just cut it slightly close, which people can say, oh, well, he struggled to make weight. Or maybe he didn't cut weight the night before. Some people cut weight the night before. Some people cut weight the morning of. Maybe he just cut weight the morning of and it was a little bit slower. He weighed in with 12 minutes to go. It was perfectly fine. But people want to make up imaginary narratives. Last thing I'll end with is this satirical tweet. Breaking news, it appears Robert Whittaker came in over the middleweight limit for his UFC 308 fight against Khamzat Chimaev. The weigh-in official didn't let the scale settle. I think the fight should be canceled and Whittaker should be DQ'd. That's what the majority of people saying, Khamzat Chimaev missed weight. That's what they sound like. Okay, if you think that's crazy, that's the equivalent to what these people think. And they keep pushing these narratives over and over and over again. And it seems to be against a certain group of fighters. You have a categorically false narrative pushed against a certain group of fighters. So I figured I'd break it down. Khamzat did not miss weight. They did not extend the window. Abu Dhabi has nothing to do with the commission because they don't have an athletic commission there. The UFC handpicks their athletic commission. And also historically, the weigh-ins are typically 2 hours. So there you go. I laid it all out for you. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.